A little fabric can go a very long way. In fact, during this mini-series on Sewing with Nancy, my guest and I will give you 10 great reasons to keep even small pieces of fabric because they are ideal candidates for creating stunning fabric flowers. Welcome back, Amy Barackman, who is here to share her fabric flower ideas. Good to have you back, Amy.
It's great to be back, Nancy. Needle felting is an ideal way to create floral fabric accessories. Wool felt is the base for the Passion Poppy with highlights of roving added. It's a striking adornment that's easy to create.
Fabric flowers, that's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, celebrating 30 years of sewing and quilting with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effects threads because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing designs and Class A needles.
What I really like about the ideas in this two-part series is that they're easy to make. Amy, in about an hour, maybe 2 hours at the most, you can make almost every one of the 10 accessories that we're going to share.
Yes, and they're great for gifts.
The first 3 in this program, we're going to work with needle felting and wool felt. And what's your favorite felt to work with?
Well, I love the wool felt because it provides such wonderful colors to choose from, a nice texture, and it's really inexpensive.
You can buy them sometimes by the rectangle or by the yard, so it's not a lot of investment if you don't already have some at home. And in the book that accompanies today's program, you'll find a pattern for this passion flower, and with a permanent marker, and if it's dark, you can just use a black permanent marker and trace. And then cut out. And here you can see the cutout. Now, Amy, we're going to do one quick marking before we do the embellishment on it.
Correct. We're going to mark about a 1/4 inch breaks in between each petal that'll help guide us with our felting.
So with the divot of the petal, we're just going to mark just arbitrarily a 1/4 of an inch. And this
Correct.
chalk will come off, so you not to worry. But then the real key to making this flower so expressive is roving.
Yes, and this is a wool roving. You can see here a little color in variation, which makes it interesting as well. But this is a little more coarse, but there's also finer rovings. Any type of roving will work. And we're going to be pulling off little pieces to work with and felt into and make highlights on our flower.
Now, if you're not familiar with roving, it is simply wool that hasn't been spun. Think of old-time spinning wheels. This is it, only in a little higher class way because it's already been dyed in this. So it's easy to come by and fun to work with.
Yes, we have a ball with it. And this is the tool that we're going to use. It's the needle felting tool. And you can see that it has a wonderful protective plastic case there, shield. And then we're going to be using these barbed needles, and that's what's going to embed the fiber into the wool felt.
So when it's in use, there are the fibers, or the needles, and I like to work with, obviously you need to work on a base.
Right, and the brush is great because the actual brush is taller than the needles, so you're not going to damage your needles when you use this. And so this is the method we're going to use. I'll pull out the piece that we started to work on here. You can see the little highlights in between each petal. And I'll take a little piece of roving and fold it. I actually am just going to kind of fold it in half, and that'll give kind of a starburst effect. And we'll felt in between those lines. And you can, do a thin layer and then slowly build your density of your felting.
If you've had a bad date, this is great.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Then you're going to do some pinning.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and pin those pleats that we see in the Passion Poppy. And those, we're going to just kind of follow those lines that we marked and pleat, all go in the same direction, and complete this in a circular manner.
And then as Amy's finishing pinning this, you can see hand stitching would be in order, and then on the back you could put a circle to place the pin. Then cut a 3" by 3/4 of an inch strip that you've fringed and little pom-pom. And you can figure this out. It doesn't take rocket science, but it certainly is a great pattern shape. And Amy, as we look at the finished Passion Papillon, our mannequin, you can see that the feathering of the roving and the contrast of the colors and the X in the middle makes an attractive accent. Roses, nothing but roses. That's what this next fabric flower technique is all about. Amy's rounded rosettes are equally as charming as the botanical kind, with the advantage of extended longevity. Learn another felting technique and you too can create a single or a bouquet of roses. We've advanced from the hand needle felting technique to show you how to work with the machine type of felting idea. And Amy, this makes felting fast.
It sure does.
Because with this rose technique, let's look at this beautiful bouquet. You're going to be working on a base of ivory color felt that's cut slightly larger than the pattern piece, and then felting both sides. You can see the white in the middle giving it that great look, both sides of the circle. You can do it by hand, you could do it by machine. This is going to be a lot faster. And with the machine there are 12 barb needles again, and then a covering, so a few more needles, no thread, no bobbin. There are needles, absolutely. And like the hand tool, you can just put roving or other fabric. Here we're using more roving, and just stitch away. You don't have to worry about direction. There isn't any feed dog area, and just let it stitch. And it takes a little time, but it is just almost magical, Amy, and you don't have to cut threads. That's what I always find.
I know, I love that too.
Sounds so phenomenal. So I've just started, but your piece has a little bit more of the felting accomplished.
Correct. We have one side felted, so now you can see we're going to go ahead and felt on the reverse side. I'm going to go ahead and grab some roving and cover it. And again, it's so forgiving. That's what I love about felting. You can always adjust as you go. And again, one thing that I'm careful about when I'm felting with the fiber onto the surface is to be careful that I don't pull the fabric while the barbs are going in and out, because then you might have a chance to break a needle. But you really can work very, very quickly. So you just work your space and then add a little more fiber, and then eventually we'll have this piece completely covered. And both sides with the pink fiber. Then I have the pattern piece.
And here we have one already cut out, and I've started to stitch into the rosette form. And you can then add a backing and a little pin on the underside. I'll take that little string away. Or you can use florist tape and florist wire and make a bouquet. This is really lovely.
It's one of my favorite projects.
So with a little bit of felting and a lot of creativity of choosing colors, you can have a beautiful rose that will last a long time. Take your felting venture one step further, creating individual petals and dimensional petals. Our pretty petal accessory combines texture, fiber, and as I said, dimension for shaping a dramatic accessory. You know, Amy, these flowers are fun, they're large, they have a lot of options where you can wear them.
I love them on a purse or even in home decor on a pillow.
We're going to be working with the paler blues. You can also use any color you'd like, having 2 colors of felt and various colors of roving.
Correct. What we've done here is done some blending. So we're going to start out with tracing our pattern piece onto our felt, and then we're going to pull a small piece of fiber. We have both the cream and the pink. I'll start with the cream, and we'll go ahead and felt in some of the cream first, and then I'll add in and do the same with the pink. So you can see that process and how we get that blended flower. The next step would be to cut out your blue piece, and here you can see where we are now going to attach it through felting onto the cream base. So you'll just again secure those 2 together through felting. And then the last step is actually cutting out the blue, and usually we give like a 1/8 inch margin around the petal. So we have that nice detail.
And really do felt a lot. You know, the felting does give it texture and has that migrating of the fabric, so they become one rather than two separate felt pieces. And the more you do it, the better it looks.
And you can see from behind sometimes that you'll see the fiber coming through, and you'll know you're finished at that point when you have it secure.
So then you have felted several pieces, and the pieces are flat. And perhaps you saw earlier that the flower had some shape. So the shaping is done with steam. This is wool, and steam, you don't many times often want to steam it too much because your projects will shrink. But in this instance, you want to do a little bit so it's filled with steam, and it's a little warm too, and then shape it and stretch out the middle portion that is going to cause the shaping. And then let this dry. You can kind of see that shaping. If you let it dry, it will stay that way. For these pretty petal flowers, we have 8 petals, 4 large. You can have 5 large if you would like, and 4 in the middle, however you would like to combine. I guess there are 5, excuse me, the large petals. And just stitch them, hand stitch them together in the center. Then add the smaller petals. Just make the petal. Amy has added to her pretty petals some beading in the middle section. You could also add buttons or fringe or whatever your case may be. But in this instance, you've worked with 2 layers of felt, multiple layers of fiber, and blending and adding the accents of the colors for a great looking flower that's fun to make. Mix and match cotton prints to create your own variety of bias blooms. No degree in horticulture needed, just an eye for color and a little sewing savvy. You'll find that when we're making all these flowers, or you're making them, it's going to be an hour, maybe 2 hours at the most to create a bias bloom, and a lot of fun.
Yes, this bloom has 3 components. We've got the leaf, the yo-yo, and then the center bloom. Part of the fun of this particular flower is the fabric choice. Here you can see some of the coordinates that we used. We like to have the actual stripe as the bias edge.
Sure.
And then making sure that the leaf contrasts with the fabric that we use for the yo-yo. You can see another little example of some fun combinations, polka dots and otherwise.
Sure. Then you're going to need a stiff craft interfacing, and sometimes it has fusible on one side, and that's what you have, Amy.
Correct. This one has fusible on one side. We went ahead and added another layer on the other side so we could fuse and sandwich the craft interfacing with the fabric. And here's the pattern piece, so you're just going to go ahead and cut out the bloom to start with.
And we call this a bias bloom because we're going to add some bias trim around the outside.
Yes, just a simple raw edge strip of about a 1/2 inch bias.
And then you're going to stitch this around all the outer edges. And here's a close-up of zigzagging. And this is kind of an artful zigzag. You just kind of mold and stitch. And it doesn't have to be
Perfect,
no.
No.
No, there's really
character and variety.
No judges here on these sewing projects. So before we change that or shape that into a bud, let's talk about a yo-yo. Now, yo-yos are a traditional quilting project.
Yo-yos have been around for, it seems like ever when it comes to sewing.
A lot of decades. And you can cut an 8-inch circle and make a traditional yo-yo, or if you'd like to use a product to create a yo-yo, you certainly may. It has a disc and a plate, and the inside disc fits in. You can see these nodules are aligned. There's a nodule out here, and so they get them aligned, but first you got to put the fabric in.
It's a wonderful shortcut.
Yeah, it just does.
It makes a near perfect yo-yo.
And then you just load it together, and really if you're using this, it's not needed to cut a circle. Let me get these in the right spot. That would help.
You can always use the traditional method too.
Sure.
But this does offer
and then
really
just bend this over, and I have a threaded needle, and there are little smile discs, cut out shapes, and you stitch in and out, and it's kind of hard to do this backwards, Amy, I must admit. Should have had this started. Well, let me start it once more. There we go. So you stitch in and out, all the way around, so that after you've stitched in and out all the way around, you snap out this inner area
Center.
and then pull.
Voila, it's
Yeah,
magic.
pull the threads. I think you can get the grasp of this. And then it's time to do some assembly. Some assembly required here. Here's one that has zigzagged and you've kind of trained it to shape.
Right, right. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and twist it into that bloom shape. And we'll tack that down with a little hand sewing. And then I can show you then that will be mounted on the yo-yo that we've created. And the last step is adding the leaf.
Now these two have been stitched. You'd stitch in the leaf on the side or underneath, and there you have a bias bloom. Fabric yo-yos were the inspiration for Amy's budding yo-yo accessory. Smidgens of silk, cotton, or even wool turn into dimensional circles that are then stacked and embellished. It's a classic look from a homespun origin. Now, usually we think of yo-yos as something from the 30s or 40s, but this certainly doesn't look from that decade.
It has a very modern look. What we're showing here is the stacked yo-yos that are combined with the leaf, and then I love the beaded detail. So this version is the cotton version. Today we're going to work with some silks. These colors just were a perfect match
they're
to
lovely.
Contrasts, and when you're choosing your colors, you want to make sure you have a vivid contrast. I brought these along to just show you the variation, and you could do a really bright palette or warmer tones, and then we either use a wool or a wool felt for the leaves.
And I mentioned a smidgen of fabric. You don't need a lot of fabric. We've cut generous oblong shapes or oval shapes because we're going to make the yo-yos in 3 different sizes, from the itty bitty, I think it's like a 1/2 inch, 1 inch to 1.5 inches, thereabouts. And you can use the templates that create the yo-yos. A few minutes ago, I used that very large yo-yo maker and just did 1 or 2 stitches. It's a little hard to do when you're not looking at it. So this one has been completely stitched, and every stitch goes in the opening, the die cut opening.
Such a great tool.
Then you pop out the disc, and you haven't stitched through because of the die cut. You haven't stitched through the areas. But to make it stuffed, just take a scrap of
Fleece. A little batting will work, or stuff it with a little fiber fill.
yeah, just a little bit goes a long way. Oh, wait, it would be a little bit better if I did it the right
There
way.
you go.
Excuse me. And just pull the threads. And there you can see the yo-yo has been shaped, and it probably is a little overdone, but I could maybe cut that a little smaller, but when you stitch everything together, it works out well. Now here is one size, 2,
Small, medium,
and 3.
and large.
And Amy, you want to stack those?
Sure. I'll show you how we do that. Just simply stack those together, and then we'll be hand stitching.
And scrunch them all together.
Scrunch them all together, and then add the beading last. And then also the leaf is a fun
Now we're using
accent.
some wool felt, just
small pieces again. I love that it doesn't take much.
And you can add some inner details to them by stitching on a water-soluble stabilizer or a heat-away stabilizer. This happens to be a heat-away stabilizer. And here you can see a close-up of zigzagging along the edges using the stabilizer as a base. And then after all the stitching has been complete, it melts away. And here's how that iron melts away the stabilizer, and it forms little balls, so it's not going to get onto the bottom of your iron. It works out very well. So then you can just add these, hand stitch them on. So the details that we have on our finished accessory, the yo-yo bloom, it has yo-yos, dimension, pearl, or not pearls, beads, and then some stitching to give it a very classic look. Today's Nancy's Corner guest has extended an invitation to you and to me. We've been cordially invited to make hospitalized children smile. Please welcome Cindy Kerr, founder of Conquer Cancer. Cindy joins us today via Skype. Welcome to Sewing with Nancy, Cindy.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Conquer Cancer is an amazing organization, but before we tell about it now, tell us how it started.
Well, in 2002, my son Ryan was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is a form of bone cancer. And I was a quilter, sewer, and still am. And I was trying to think what I could do to make his hospital room seem more like home or brighter. So I would make him a pillowcase every time he went into the hospital to have on his bed.
And the pillowcases you didn't use a Little Mermaid for him, but they're fun and novelty prints, and I'm having a couple here to show, bright and colorful, unlike the hospital pillowcases the white ones that they get, right?
Right, correct. I mean, I think the first one I did for him had hamburgers and French fries on it. And,
Sure.
You know, we did soccer, we did, you know, the Halloween, that type of thing.
But you have taken this mission beyond just initially working with your son.
Right. What happened is Ryan was cancer-free for about 2 years, and then he had a relapse and went home after his surgery. And my daughter and I got out our stash, which we all have, and made 30 more pillowcases and took them back for the rest of the children in the hospital where he was being treated. And that's how it sort of began.
And now you have made thousands and thousands, or not just you, but your organization and volunteers.
Right. We have delivered over 490,000 pillowcases in the last 5 years. And that's what I try to tell everybody. It's not me. It's, you know, all the volunteers that have made this happen.
It's one thing to deliver the pillowcases, but the other interesting thing is that you go into the hospitals with the children and their families, and they make pillowcases.
Right. After one of, you know, Ryan had several relapses, and we realized how boring it is in the hospital. And so one of the things that we do is we take our kit of pillowcases, our sewing machines, and we go sew with the children in the hospital. Their siblings, because they're going through this also, or their parents. It's a blast.
And I love the story about the pincushion. Share with our viewers about that.
So we have all the different color pin cushions, and you know, one particular story that stands out is I had a little boy who I asked him if he wanted to help pin or if he wanted me to do it, and he said, "Oh, I want to pin because I'm always getting stuck, so I want to stick something." And that seems to be the general trend with all the kids, that they like to put the pins into the pin cushion or the pillow.
They're in control of that fabric.
Exactly, and very proud. You know, they don't have a lot of control in what they are going through, but this sort of gives them a respite from that and a choice in something.
And there are other people who are involved with your organization, Conquer Cancer, that don't have a lot of choices, but they make and create pillowcases. You told me about the Men's Maximum Security Prison.
Exactly. We have the Maryland Men's Maximum Security Prison, who for 3 years has been making pillowcases for us. There are 5 men who will never get out. And the assistant warden had cancer, a relapse, was feeling sorry for himself, and Googled, came up with us, and decided that this is what these guys were going to do for us. And they have delivered over, I believe, over 3,000 pillowcases to us. Or not delivered to us, we've gone and gotten them.
Oh, sure. How exciting. It's kind of like eating potato chips.
Yes, that's what, yes.
No, you can't eat one.
Exactly, exactly.
So people donate the pillowcases, you make them with the children, with the families, you're very diversified.
Right. And we pretty much, you know, we stick with pillowcases because we have our hands full. Myself alone in the Philadelphia area, we deliver about 1,200 a month to the hospital. So while it would be wonderful to do them for adults, we really just concentrate on the children.
And an amazing number you shared with me is that 44,000 children each year are treated for cancer-related illnesses.
Right. And I think most people aren't aware of that. September is Childhood Cancer Month, and 44,000 are currently in treatment every year.
Well, Cindy, this is an inspiring way to sew. It doesn't take a lot to make a pillowcase, but it can make a child smile. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Well, if you would like to make some pillowcases or donate fabric for Conquer Cancer, you can go to the nancyzieman.com website. And there are All Things Sewing with Nancy there. Click on Nancy's Corner and you can find out more about Conquer Cancer by clicking on the link that's right there. Well, this wraps up our first program of our two-part series on fabric flowers. Amy Barackman will be back another time for our second program. Remember, you can go to nancyzieman.com, watch this program again online, and find out all things Sewing with Nancy. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Amy Barackman has written a fully illustrated book entitled Indigo Junction's Fabric Flowers that includes the instructions for all the projects featured in this two-part series. For ordering information, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2608. Order item number BK2608, Indigo Junction's Fabric Flowers. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzieman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, celebrating 30 years of sewing and quilting with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Oliso. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.